Good evening, everyone. MONERO 64 here, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So this is Sunday, December 1st. No, December 1st, 2019. The title of the live stream is, Will ETFs be safe in the next financial crisis? So, hi, Water Shambles. Hi, Girl OG. Nice to see you here. Couch Potato Kennedy. Let me know if the picture is okay and the audio is okay as well. I'm using another camera. I'm using the Zoom, as you can see. I'll be able to share some screens. So I'll just wait a bit for more people to come on. David from Providence, David Walker. Hi, David. Rhode Island, right? Yeah. All right. Billy's here tonight, taking a nap. Girl OG from Norway. So how many people have we got? 38. I'll wait a little longer. You guys can ask me some questions. In the meantime, I will get back to the subject of ETFs in a minute. Oh, the Zoom's going well. I've also got a new camera. It's called a Logitech camera. A Logitech Brio 4K. It's a pretty nice camera. It's working well. It doesn't work well if I just do a video and post a video. I think it's a streaming camera. Mr. B, thank you. Billy, top show. Marek, Kalenda, Hong Kong sanctions illegal not to approve by UN and international law. Jeff Logue from South Georgia. New Mexico. Luna from New Mexico. Low blood pressure from Corpus Christi. James Bay. Hi, John Norris from Alaska. You're a regular. SAC Media, I haven't looked into that 18-year-old land property cycle. I'm sorry, I haven't done that. Anonymous, is it possible to beat market maker algos in options? Are there better brokerages to use? I think it's very difficult. The market makers are professional. Even when I worked in the city, there was a point where we had to deal with market makers. Of course, if you're going to do vanilla options, if you're just going to buy a call or a put, and it's not much size, you can just like maybe put a bid in, but if you're trying to beat the market makers, it's going to be hard. I think they've got a lot more firepower than the average individual. James Bay from British Columbia. Hi, James. Yeah, the camera is a streaming camera. I try to use it for a video, and it didn't really come out very well. I think this is what it's for. Before, I used to stream my live streams with my iMac camera. So I bought a Logitech camera. It's quite good. Jeff Lowe, Glint, yeah, it looks like they're back. So I think we got to give them time. As I said, my question is, could the same thing that happened happen again? Who knows? But it did what it was supposed to do. It protected the clients' funds, right? They were in their own accounts with Lloyd's Bank. They were not held by Glint. Also, the gold was in an allocated account, so it protected everyone. So that is a positive from it, but I think we need more time. I think it's going to take a while for people to gain confidence, and I think it will probably do well, Glint, but it will take more time. Don't forget the US operations. they were running all the time that the UK operation or EU operation was under administration. Low blood pressure, what percentage property taxes in the UK? 2.5% in Texas. We don't have a property tax here. What we have is called a council tax, and it's based, it's based on your property value, but it's not really a property tax, it's a council tax. For example, here where I live, I pay, and it depends on the council, I pay about £200 a month council tax. So that's almost £2,500 a year. And that is a lot. That's even less than a percent of the value of my house. So yeah, it's not that bad here in the UK. The other thing that's good about the UK, if you have your house, if you buy it, let's say for £100,000, which is impossible these days, it's a lot higher, but let's say you buy it for 100,000 and you sell it for 500, there's no capital gains tax on property here in the UK, unless it's a second property. So you could buy a house for 100, sell it for 500, and then buy another one for 200 and keep all the profit. That's how it works here in the UK. Okay, I'm gonna share with you guys it's one of the reasons why I'm talking about this, about ETFs, whether they'll be safe in the next crisis. And it's an article I saw today in the FT. So here we go. You guys can see this, right? I hope. So assets held in exchange traded funds surged to record 6 trillion. Failure of most traditional active managers during the crisis prompted many investors to seek less volatile strategies. So this is what they're saying. Global assets held by exchange traded funds have climbed to a record 6 trillion, doubling in size in less than 4 years in a surge turbocharged by lengthy US stock market bull run. The sector's explosive growth has attracted heightened scrutiny by regulators who are concerned about the influence of ETFs as they spread deeper and wider into financial markets. Passing the 6 trillion milestone is a historic moment, but we are still in a relatively early stage of the industry's development, as ETF adoptions rate across Europe and Asia are well below those in the US. This is the important part here. I think personally it says ETFs, which provide low cost to invest in a basket, low cost way to invest in a basket of assets by tracking an index, were seen as an insignificant niche before the financial crisis. But the failure of most traditional active managers to avoid damaging losses during the crisis prompted many investors to seek less volatile strategies with ETFs. These financial instruments have gathered more than 3.5 trillion in cash in the past decade. So I'm gonna go back now, stop sharing. So let's have a look. So yeah, ETFs, I personally think they add a layer of counterparty risk. And why do they do that? How different are they from mutual funds? Well, mutual funds, they do add a counterparty as well, the mutual fund manager, but they do hold the underlying assets. In ETFs, a lot of times, the issuers of ETFs, they only track the assets. They don't really hold the assets. And I think that's dangerous. ETNs are the same, exchange traded notes. They're issued by bankers, brokerages. So in my opinion, even though I have had ETFs before, I think they should be used more as a trading strategy, not as long-term investments, ETFs. I will go into the GLD, the gold ETF as well. I don't think that's investing in real gold, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Just want to see, we've got 113 people now. Good. Who else is here? John the Glass. Hi, John the Glass. Have you looked into Craig Wright's story of Bitcoin? Is that the Bitcoin Cash BSV? I haven't looked at that story, no. Yeah, Anonymous says he doesn't trust ETNs. I want to share a story from last year, beginning of last year, about ETNs. Let's have a look here. Okay, still getting used to this. All right, let's do it again. ETNs. So there we go. So yeah, last year, beginning of 2018, as you can see here, February 2018, Credit Suisse, big, too big to fail bank from Switzerland, right, says it will end trading in the volatility security that's become the focus of this sell-off. This was the beginning of last year. It says the last day of trading of Velocity shares daily inverse VIX short-term exchange traded XIV will be February 20th. The XIV security, which had fallen 85% in after hours, closed down 93% Tuesday. Credit Suisse said it will end trading in a security that some investors believed was exaggerating movements in volatility futures market and even the overall stock market. So basically, this ETN exchange traded note is a promise by Credit Suisse. And when the markets got too calm and the value of this ETF, which was supposed to, let's say, it was supposed to go opposite of what volatility was doing, the value just collapsed and they closed the security. So if you had any money in there, your money was lost, right? So this is what it said here. If the price of the underlying futures contracts increases by more than 80% a day, it is extremely likely that the inverse ETNs will depreciate to an intraday indicated value or closing indicated value equal to or less than 20% to the prior days. So that's the other thing as well. I think these, for the average investor, unless they do their work and they know what they're doing, I think these are very kind of sophisticated, not sophisticated, but complicated. And I think, yeah, you should be aware of these banks that issue these things like Credit Suisse, Deutsche Asset Management, right? You've got JP Morgan involved as well. So yeah, I remember this from last year, ETNs. Yeah, I would stay away from these instruments, be they commodities or indices or volatility. I think they are working right now because the markets are going up and there's liquidity. But when things get volatile and the system is near a breakdown, I think a lot of these ETFs and ETNs are going to be a dangerous place to be. Yes, you can trade it, but you have to be nimble, I would say. So let's see if we've got any questions here. Let's go back. Hi, Lord Humongous. Nice to see you here. Yeah, so what about the GLD? A lot of people ask me if they should buy physical gold or GLD. Well, GLD. So I have an article here from Forbes. It's from a couple of years ago, but it still applies, so I'm going to go through it. So it will clarify for people. In my opinion, I don't recommend the GLD, the gold ETF. Okay, here we go. So GLD versus physical gold. So this is from Forbes from March 2017. Which is the better investment now, right? So this is from Oliver Garrett, founding partner and CEO of Risk Hedge. And he says gold ETFs are rising in popularity due to their convenience. That's the other thing about ETFs. They're very convenient. They're not like, how can I say, index funds or mutual funds where you can just trade at you can't trade intraday, right? It's more difficult. Yes, they make it easier, but there's the other side of the coin that they're not really what you think you're trading, right? So let's keep going. They are easy to trade. There's no need to store anything, and no one is going to break into your house to steal your GLD shares. But there are a lot of hidden dangers inherent in the structure and operations of gold ETFs that few investors are aware of. And these risks are more pronounced than ever as the threat of another financial crisis is always around the corner. Considering the public's waning trust in the banking system, that's another thing. All these ETFs, ETNs, there's another layer of counterparty, not only your broker, but also the people who issue these ETFs. Investors find themselves wondering how GLD stacks up to owning the real thing. When you look at both assets more closely, it's clear that gold ETFs and gold bullion are different, very different investments. Why GLD is not the same as gold? Spider Gold Trust GLD, the largest, most popular gold ETF, is an investment that holds physical gold to back its shares. The share prices tracks the price of gold and it trades like a stock. But the vast majority of investors don't have a claim on the underlying gold. And here it is. Here's why. The reason for this is that you can only request physical delivery of the metal if you own a minimum of 100,000 GLD. So right now, GLD is around $138. So you'd need $13 million at least to get delivery of your gold, right? And it says, and even if you do own enough shares, the GLD ETF reserves the right to settle your delivery request in cash. So, people say that GLD are accumulating gold, that they've got a lot of gold, but it's not real. And the custodian for GLD is a bank that I personally don't trust. It's HSBC. So I don't really think the gold is there. Pat says, still considering platinum. Do you hold any yourself? Also, gold technicals looks trapped and sideways. Yeah, that's right. I agree. I don't hold any myself, but yeah, the platinum chart, I think I looked at it last week. It looked similar to the silver chart, right? I think platinum is going to do well as well, even though I personally don't hold any platinum. Yeah, 100,000 shares, Anonymous. That's a lot. Right now, you need to have 13.8 million to get delivery. You know, with Glint, I know we had the problems with Glint, but they'll deliver a minimum of 10 grams, which is more reasonable, which is about $500, $400, $500. Have a sip of water from my end of Fed mug. I have to say, Teespring, they were advising me to do this promo code for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And it actually worked. I got quite a few people who bought some merchandise in the Monaco City Teespring store, Monaco 64 Teespring store. have a 20% off there. And it's good to the end of the day tomorrow, if anyone's interested in getting an End of Fed mug and other mugs or a Billy mug. Just thought I'd let you know. Snowy Skylar, do you think we should be storing food? It all depends where you are, your circumstances. I guess it doesn't hurt. I personally don't. I mean, I live near London. I mean, it's still London here, but I'm only like 5-10 minutes away from the countryside. I think I could get hold of stuff if there was a crisis. It's up to the individual. I don't think it hurts. There's a lot of stuff that you can store for a long time. Even if you don't need it, you can still use it in the future. John Ainsworth, yeah, mutual funds, they're not the same as ETFs, you see. And let's have a look here. I've got sorry, let's see. So yeah, mutual funds are more, they're managed by the mutual fund company, and they actually invest in the underlying assets, right? And you can't trade it as easily. And they use the end of the day price, I think, when you buy the mutual fund. ETFs, they track the price of the underlying assets, and they're issued by banks and financial institutions. They're not backed by the underlying asset, even though some of them can be backed. But the thing about them is that they're cheaper and they're more, you can trade it. It's more liquid. The only problem is that prior to 2008, I think ETFs were only for equity or stock, and the SEC allowed it to expand in 2008, which is ironic. So now you have ETFs on commodities, you've got it on interest rates, you've got it on volatility, on derivatives. And I don't think the average person that doesn't do this for a living, that's trying to save for his or her pension or retirement, should be involved in ETFs that make bets that are backed by the promise of banks on derivatives. I think I would stay out of it. I'm not advising people. That's just my advice. I mean, I know I've been in the markets. I know about derivatives, and I wouldn't touch these things. So that's my view. Mutual funds are different. Lord Humongous, I don't understand what makes Glint so bad. All major banks don't back customers' deposit with physical gold. Well, basically, Glint is a depository bank, right? They don't really pay interest. So yeah, they store the gold. They're like they're like the original banks were supposed to be, like where you stored your gold. That's what they do, and they allow you to spend it with a MasterCard. I'm just trying to see what else we got here, what I've covered. Water Shambles, appreciate honesty, Mary. Oh, you're welcome. Mike Korn from Sacramento. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Colonel Crypto, do you think silver is abundant? No, I think there's You know, gold is much more abundant than silver because gold is not consumed as much as silver. Very little gold is consumed. Most of the gold that's ever been mined and brought up from the ground is still above ground. Of course, there's a lot of probably lost gold, but silver is consumed because it's like a industrial commodity. So yeah, it's not abundant as gold. And I don't think there are too many mining companies that specialize solely on silver. A lot of the mining for silver is done together with copper mining, right? It's like there's very few mining companies like Hecla Mining that are purely silver plays, right? Mr. B has been using Wirex service for several years. I've got a Wirex card as well. I think they had a problem. It was back, I think it was back last year, in the beginning of 2018. I think the people who provided their cards closed their account. So Wirex, we didn't have Wirex for like 3 or 4 months. So there was a problem with that as well. But they came back and they're quite good, Wirex. Wirex, for those who don't know, they allow you to store cryptocurrencies, and it's a bit like Glint. They give you like a debit card or credit card, and you can load it up with cryptocurrencies. And then when you want to spend it, you sell it into your national currency and you use it as a Visa card. There's my Wirex card. I've got my Glint card here as well, still. So anyway. Mark Carney, he's not at the Bank of Canada anymore. He's been the governor of the Bank of England for quite a few years. Dr. A and B says, love your videos. How to buy silver? Are there any companies as Glint? Unfortunately, Glint is not doing silver yet. They've told me they might do silver in the States, but don't hold me to it. No, there aren't any. Here in the UK, there aren't. The problem with the UK is that silver is taxed. They have VAT, value added tax on silver. It's not like gold. Hopefully that will change, but physical silver, you can do it. You know, you can buy physical silver, but we'll have to wait and see. I would say Glint might eventually provide silver, but we'll have to wait. Don't hold me to it. Aaron Levy says, I'd much rather have crypto in my hand. Well, I have a little bit of crypto in my Wirex account, but most of it I keep in my private wallet. I don't keep any crypto with exchanges. And if I want to spend some crypto on Wirex, I'll only send the amount that I want to spend. You're right. You should have your own private wallet. And that's what I do as well. I never leave any crypto in the exchange. Guroji says, when gold skyrocketed in June, the two major coin dealers here in Norway ran out of gold in minutes. Wow, that's very interesting. I guess, yeah, Norway isn't a big country, but it's still significant that they ran out of gold. Well, no one was willing to sell, right? Any thoughts on the 1.5 billion put play by Ray Dalio? Well, I think his fund is worth 150 billion. So yeah, it's 1% of his fund. It's a good way to protect yourself. And why? Well, because when you buy a put, it's like you're shorting the market. But if you do it through the futures, you short the future and the market goes up, you can lose a lot of money, right? you're exposed completely on the upside because the sky's the limit. So what a put does, it it keeps you short of the market, but the most he can lose is 1.5 billion. If he went short futures 1.5 billion, he could lose 10, 20 billion if the market were to skyrocket. The only disadvantage with a put is that it runs out of time, right? So if the market doesn't go down, he would just lose all that premium that he paid for the option. I think it goes to show that Ray Dalio and the firm, Bridgewater Associates, they know how to manage risk. That's the way I would do it. I would buy a put instead of selling stocks short. It's very dangerous in the market conditions that we are to go short like that. Why doesn't anyone mention Rhodium, better investment? Well, I remember a few years ago, Rhodium did go up a lot. I don't follow Rhodium. I'll have a look at it. I'm still alive, Epstein. Epstein. And thank you again. Well, thanks for the super chat donation. I'm still alive, Epstein. So you still think he's alive, do you? Capital gains tax on silver here in the UK, there isn't, as long as you buy coin of the realm silver, like anything with the monarch on the coin, Britannia's silver Britannia's, there's no capital gains. I didn't catch that interview of Ray Dalio with Patrick Bet-David. No, I didn't. I saw that Ray Dalio, though, was at a conference in Connecticut, and he said that if the United States doesn't fix, the problem of wealth inequality, that you guys could have a revolution. He thinks it's a problem. I think he might be exaggerating a little bit, or maybe not. I think sometimes people get too doom and gloom. I personally, even though I try to warn people about the monetary system, I think the world will keep going. But I'm not really too much into the Mad Max scenario. And why? Well, because I grew up in Brazil, and we had like 3 different currencies when I was growing up, and the world, things still kept going. I know it's a third world country, kind of third world country, also with good parts. But if Brazil could manage it, I think other countries can manage it as well. Or maybe not, because the United States and Western Europe, they've been used to having everything run so smoothly, right? That people could get angry at the fact that things are going, south in terms of, becoming more like a banana republic, right? So Adair B3, what are your thoughts on shift towards using monetary policy to tackle climate change? Yeah, it's a big LOL. That's what I think about it. It's complete rubbish. I think the central banks are trying to get involved. It's all about control, right? And they're trying to deflect people away from looking at the problems they've created with all their money printing. So you should Google George Hunt, UN, UNCED, UNCED, 1992, George Hunt. He talks about who's really behind this global warming climate change agenda. And you probably know it. It's the bankers and the globalists, right? It's one of the ways to create a problem that goes across borders so that they can institute international rules, right? And kill national sovereignty. That's what it's all about. Yeah, Hecla is a good way to bet on silver. Hecla mining. I haven't looked at it lately, but I think the last move up in gold and silver, I think it got up to $7 or $8. I'm not sure where it's now, probably $1 or $2. Yes, they can engineer the next financial crisis to force people to use digital currency. They usually use crisis to implement things that people would normally not accept. So that is a possibility. Annabelle Franks, I appreciate that you're not into derivatives due to the current risk. I'm trading options using vertical spreads to mitigate risk. Do you have any other investments at all? Annabelle, I think options are a good way to trade derivatives, because unless, of course, you go short, naked short options, I don't recommend that. But buying put spreads or buying call spreads, it looks like what you're doing, that makes sense. No, I haven't really been, well, I do have precious metals, physical precious metals, and I have cryptocurrencies at the moment. That's all the investment I have. I guess my house, you could call it an investment, my property, even though I don't consider it that, but yeah, it's, so that's what I'm in. But I would say, yeah, one thing I've been looking at that I think could be interesting is tangibles. Fine wine, believe it or not, I think is interesting, but you need to do your homework on that. Fine wine, yeah, I think is a good market, even though I think it's a little bit bubbly. When I went to Italy, I had to look at some of the Tuscan wines. They're quite pricey. FDR wanted to close the BIS because of their funding of Hitler. Yeah, I mean, during the Bretton Woods conference, the Norwegian delegation wanted to liquidate the bank, but guess who went against that? It was John Maynard Keynes, who was the British representative. I think Henry Dexter White and the Norwegians, they wanted to close that bank down, but they didn't, unfortunately. Rothschild wine, Lord Humongous. It's funny you should say that, Lord Humongous, because about when I was in the city, I think it was 2004 or 5, so one of my colleagues came to me and some other guys and said, oh, I'm investing in this wine. It's bonded wine. It means it's in the barrel, so it's not in the bottle. And it happened to be a Rothschild wine. And I said, fine, now I'll put, I think I put 3,000 pounds into it. And I said, fine, I'll do that. And a year and a half later, it was worth 7. And I sold it, no capital gains or anything, because it was bonded. So actually, I have made money off the Rothschilds before, I can say that. But yeah, I think the Chinese have gotten into wine a lot, and that's why it's so inflated. I think if there is a financial crisis and you see a collapse of a lot of assets, then you get into the wine. I think right now it's a little bit too bubbly. Excuse the pun. Satan's nectar. John Norris, you need a place to live. Best to own the land you live on. Yeah. Rothschild are dead. Anything else here? Let's see. Oh yeah, a little bit about the what's going on with this China trade. I think there's a headline here from yesterday, and it says China wants US tariffs rolled back in phase 1 trade deal, Global Times. And it says Beijing top priority in any phase 1 trade deal with the US is the removal of existing tariffs on Chinese goods. China's Global Times newspaper said on Sunday, amid continued uncertainty on whether the two sides can strike a deal. That's the other thing that I've seen now. You know, they're not talking really about the whole trade negotiations, that there will be a deal, but it's the phase 1. If you remember well, the trade deal was supposed to have been finalized and signed, the whole thing, on March 1st this year, 2019. Now, this phase 1 is supposed to be agreed upon at the end of November. And now they're talking already that they're going to, this phase 1 is going to keep going until early next year. But so it's some people have said that this story could help the stock market. I actually don't think it will, because yeah, and this is what we have to keep in mind, that you know, when they talk about a deal now, it's not really the whole deal, it's the phase 1. Don't forget, back in October, when they mentioned phase 1, that was the first time we ever heard of phase 1. This is just an excuse to keep negotiating, maybe to keep the stock market from correcting. Because if they came out and said, oh, we can't negotiate a trade deal, I don't think it would be good for the market. So now they've got to divide it into phases. Annabelle Frank's physical assets are great, but no income. Well, paper assets are not giving too much income these days either, at least here in the UK. UK gilts, you get 1%, I think, for 10-year gilt, maybe a little more. You've got inflation running at 3-4%. So your income is actually negative in real terms. You could buy one of these high-risk bonds that you see being advertised for small investors and get 5-7%, but at a very high risk. So there's very little, unfortunately, that's providing income now. I guess physical asset like a property or a second home or an apartment, that could provide some kind of income. But paper money right now, I don't think is a good bet for an income. Aaron Levy, Bitcoin cycle bottom. I'm not too sure. I'm not really too much into cycles. I don't really, but I looked at the Bitcoin chart today. I did a video this morning. It looks like it could continue lower a little bit, but looking at, there's like a falling wedge in Bitcoin as well. We're close to the end of the falling wedge. So yeah, it could keep going, you know, up and down here between 6.5 and 8,000 for the next few weeks before it moves higher. Who knows? But I've added on some Bitcoin in the last few weeks, and also some EOS. So I think longer term we'll go higher. And if you think about it, well, we've been in this bear market in Bitcoin for almost 2 years now. I think the top was December, January 2017, right? Graham Pickering says he enjoys the channel from New Zealand. Hi, Graham. Thank you. Aaron Levy thinks gold will have a surprise breakout no one expects. That would be nice, Aaron. Well, one thing I would say, back in 1979, I think gold was trading around $400 in November. And then by January 20th, it was at almost 900. So it can move quickly. So it like more than doubled in about two and a half months. So if the same thing would happen now, we could go to over 3,000. And maybe that's why there's a big buyer of the 4,000 calls in gold futures, right? And it's a very long term option, 2021. But if the market spikes like that, big spike, that option, even though it would still be out of the money if we went to 3,000, but if we went there in like next 2 months, that option would really jump in value a lot higher, and you could sell it even without reaching the strike, right? Antiques, Annabelle Franks. I think antiques, you need to be careful with them. I guess longer term, I think they will always hold some value, antiques, but the problem is liquidity. Very hard to sell when you need to sell, right? If things are not well. But yeah, longer term, it's great. I think antiques. Of course, you got to be careful. Do your due diligence before you buy antiques. I think my dad once, back in the 80s, he was approached by Russians to buy icons, the Russian icons, and he was thinking about buying it, but before he bought it, he called like a specialist, had him come and visit, come over and look at the icons, and the guy stood there and went, fake, 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 fake. So yeah, you need to do your homework and get specialist advice, I think. Paul Flyman, I haven't looked at rhodium lately, so I can't give you my view on it. One thing I would say, it trades, it's not really correlated to gold that much. It can move independently of gold and silver. And I would say it's a bit harder to trade and to get a hold of rhodium. Yeah, so I haven't really been involved in that market, even though I remember 10 or I think 12 years ago, it really shot up, I think to 8,000. Not sure. Yeah, gold is 2,300 in Australia. That's right. I made a video yesterday and I looked at the price of gold in all the major currencies, the Aussie dollar included. Aussie dollar seems to be the currency that's performing the worst against gold. "47 minutes, so I think we'll do an hour. How high will gold have to go to make the future bid at 4,000 to pay off 1,800 to 2,000? Well, are you asking, DW, you're asking about the options, the 4,000 call? Well, the thing is, the 4,000 call, this call has like about a year and a half to go. I think is middle of 2021, the expiry. So what I was saying is that, let's say gold goes from 1460, where it is now, let's say it goes to 1,800 in a month's time. That's a huge move, quick move in a quick small amount of time. So that option, I think it traded at $3.50. That could very easily be at $7 if we see that move. And even though we'd still have a year and a half to go, you could just sell that option and double your money, right? Even without gold going to 4,000. But of course, let's say if gold jumped to 4,000 in next month, and you still have like a year and a half or a year and 5 months to go in that option, even if it was at 4.5 and it was at the strike, it will probably be worth like 500, maybe even $1,000, because it's gone up so much. So that would be the jackpot, right? If you went to 4,000, that option would be worth many times, hundreds of times more than what the guy bought it for. But if it goes to 4,000 like 2 weeks before the expiry in 2021, then that option is probably going to be worth about 20 or 30, not 100 or 500, right? It's all dependent on the time and how fast the underlying market moves. Lord Humongous, being diabetic, do you ever drink? Well, I do drink once in a while, but I try to stay off beer or lager because that has quite a lot more carbohydrates. If I have a drink, I'll have a glass of red wine or white wine, and I don't drink very regularly. So yeah, I don't think it's a huge problem as long as you're not a heavy drinker, I guess. Whole Bitcoiner, love to see you interview Mark Faber. That's a good idea, actually. It's interesting because the firm that I worked for when I started out in Switzerland, in Geneva, back in the early 90s, they had, I remember they had all these books in the back office by Mark Faber, because one of our clients was a friend of Mark Faber. So that's the first time I heard of him back in 1990. And I think I had one of the books. I took one of them from the office. My boss has said, oh yeah, take one of them. They had a lot of his books. I forgot which one it was, but yeah, I'll have to look into it. And the thing is, now with Zoom and the camera, Zoom is really good to do interviews. I might look into interviewing more people. That would be interesting. The other person I wouldn't mind talking to would be Catherine Austin Fitz. We'll see. I'll have to try to contact her. Oh, CFDs, Anonymous. CFDs are derivatives. They're like futures. They're quite risky as well, and you can leverage with CFDs. One of the firms I worked for in the city, MF Global or Men Financial, they used to do a lot of CFDs. I think it was GNI who started a lot of the CFDs. It's basically trading stocks, leverage. Yeah, they don't have CFDs in the US, I don't think. I'm not sure if they have it yet. Egon von Greyerz, yeah, that's another good one. I'm going to make a list and see if I can get some of these people. I like Egon von Greyerz. I like Mark Faber. I like Catherine Austin Fitz. So we'll see. Dave Humphreys, what percentage are you into precious metals in terms of net wealth? Well, liquid wise, most of it, most of my savings, but I guess my house is probably the biggest part of my net worth, and it's unencumbered. There's no debt, so I'd still bricks and mortar, I'd say. But precious metals, yeah, I have very little cash in the bank. I keep just enough to pay the bills every month, and I do have some cryptocurrencies, but not as much as precious metals. I think it all depends on the individual, how much they want to save, what they think is important, because that's what gold and silver are. It's like saving money. I recommend getting computer eyeglasses. You don't have to look out the bottom of your glasses. All right, I'll look into that. Johnny, see what kind of coins you stack? Well, mostly here in the UK, I like the sovereigns, even though I have other coins. Silver as well. I've got Britannias, I've got gold, silver eagles, I've got silver bars, I've got I've got a 2 kilo bar on my shelf. I've got like I've got this, it's a 10-ounce kookaburra, Australian, silver. It's like a big silver coin. I do have some gold bars as well. I do have some numismatic coins, but mostly I would say would be sovereigns, because in the UK, sovereigns are considered legal tender. So there's no capital gains tax on sovereigns. Yeah, Billy, there he is still asleep. Yeah, less QE. QE is just the problem is who has all the Nazi gold? It's probably all at the Bank of England, at the New York Fed. That's where all the Nazi gold is. That's the thing about gold, is very fungible. So you can't really tell what gold is Nazi or not anymore, can you? I saw a headline, A. Dix, about that, about cryptocurrency in German. I haven't read into it. How long have we got? I'll take a, yeah, Billy's got like a little blanket there. My wife likes to put the blanket there to protect the sofa, because he sometimes he likes to like scratch things. So don't want him scratching the sofa. Tell us about your life, Billy life, not Nazi gold. Well, I think I did a video a couple of years ago about my background. You could probably find it in my channel if you just search under videos. Snowy, Skylar, so hard on young people. Any hope for them? I think the only hope would be for the system to completely implode, so we could start from scratch. Because as it is now, if they can keep dragging it on and on, they're gonna be paying for it, right? Because baby boomers are retiring, young people are still paying national insurance or Social Security, and that's going to be worthless in 20 and 30, 40 years, but it's going to be paying for the people now. I think the best thing that could happen for young people is for the whole system to implode. But a lot of young people nowadays, unfortunately, think that the solution is more government and socialism, and I don't think that's the solution either. No, I haven't invested in green power crypto, Sean. I haven't. I'm all right, Sanjit. We're almost finishing here, but I think you can watch the live stream once it's recorded. I'm only taking another couple of questions. Been here for an hour. Did you look up Barr's father-in-law, GS guy? Well, I know that William Barr's dad was in the OSS, which is the predecessor of the CIA, right? And he also hired Jeffrey Epstein in the 70s to teach at the school that he was the headmaster of in New York. So yeah, they're all connected, these people. All right, thanks for showing up, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you tomorrow. I wish you all a good evening, good afternoon, or good morning if you're in New Zealand and Australia, and a good Monday, of course. All right, take care. Bye.